I get paid to walk into dead men's houses and put a price on everything they left behind. 900 miles from home, I opened the file, read the address, and felt my chest lock. Then a 7-year-old taped a yellow note to a dining table and told me her father kept a story inside it. I hadn't spoken to her mother in 15 years. The motel off Route 22 had a vending machine that ate my dollar and kept it. I read the file on the bed Monday night because the desk had a wobble that made my handwriting look dishonest. Corinne called before I got past the cover page. "You made it to Ohio." "I made it to a parking lot in Ohio. There's a difference." "You signed the disclosure form. Signed it at a truck stop outside Zanesville." "Did you read it, Corinne?" "That's a no." "It's 4 pages of the same sentence wearing different hats. Nobody reads it. You're the only appraiser I've got who can walk a 100-year-old farmhouse and not miss the good stuff. 9 days. Full inventory, photographs, comparables. The estate wants numbers before the hearing." "What hearing?" "Not our business, Beck. Call me Friday." I turned the page after she hung up. 402 Prescott Road. My chest went tight the way it does on a ladder when the rung gives half an inch, and I sat there on that terrible mattress reading 8 characters over and over like they might rearrange themselves into a different street. Harlow Bend hadn't changed enough to help me. The high school sign still bragged about a regional softball title 2 seasons out of date. A grocery bag hung in the fence by the feed store, snapping in the wind like it had been assigned the job. The front door was unlocked. I knocked anyway twice, then called out and stepped into a front room that smelled like old varnish and lemon cleaner, and I had my scanner out and a price forming in my head before I made it 4 steps, because that's what 15 years does to a man's eyes. Then the kid walked in. She was maybe 7 in a swimsuit under overalls, carrying a pad of sticky notes like a clipboard. She peeled one off, pressed it flat to the corner of the dining table, and smoothed it down with her whole palm. "That one isn't for sale." "Says who?" "Says me. I'm doing the catalog." "You've got a catalog." "Everybody's got a catalog." She looked up at me with total seriousness. "Mine's the true one." I crouched to her level, which is a trick I learned my 2nd year and have never stopped using. "What's wrong with the table?" "Nothing's wrong with it. My dad kept a story inside it." "Inside the table." "Inside it." She knocked on the leg with one knuckle twice businesslike. "He told me at bedtime. He said I'd find it when I got tall enough." "What kind of story?" "I don't know yet." She said it patiently, like I was the slow one. "That's the whole point of it." My throat did something complicated. I stood up and made myself look at the ceiling joists instead of at her. "Does your mom know there's a man in the house?" "Are you the one Uncle Grant let in?" "Nobody let me in. The door was open." "That's Uncle Grant." She peeled another note. "He's got a key, too. He forgets to lock it after." I was still turning that sentence over when the back door banged and a woman's voice came down the hallway ahead of her. "Josie, honey, did you feed the—" She stopped in the doorway with a bag of flour in her arms, and her forearms dusted white to the elbow, and I watched the bag slide out of her hands and hit the floor, and neither of us moved to pick it up. "Beckett Hale." "Hi, Wren." Her hand went out for the doorframe, and her knuckles went the color of the flour on them. When she spoke again, her voice had gone thin and high in the middle the way a voice does when a person is holding it together by main strength. "There is a man in my kitchen with a barcode scanner. I know how this looks." "Do you? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you drove 900 miles to put a sticker on my house." "I didn't know it was your house until 11 o'clock last night. And you came anyway. I came to say it to your face instead of over the phone." My own voice had gone rough. "I'm not doing this job." She laughed one hard note with no humor anywhere in it and pressed the back of her wrist against her eyes. "Josie, baby, go check on the birds." "I'm working. Now, please." The kid went but slow, and she looked back at me once from the hallway like she was confirming an entry in that catalog of hers. Wren didn't sit. She gripped the counter behind her with both hands, and I saw them shaking against the laminate before she tucked them under her arms. 15 years, she said. 15 years, and this is the day. I'll be out of here in 10 minutes. You always were good at that part. That one landed exactly where she aimed it. I picked up her flower, set it on the counter, and got out to the porch before I said something I'd have to carry. Her ring was on her right hand. 3rd finger. A half carat in a plain setting, maybe $1,100 retail 8 years ago, and I knew exactly what it was worth and exactly what it meant that somebody had moved it over and hadn't taken it off, and I hated that my brain does that. Corinne picked up on the 2nd ring. "Pull me off it," I said. Conflict. Personal history with the widow. Beck. I'll eat the travel. Send Dev. It's not her contract. Papers moved on her end. The estate's paying us. The executor signed the authorization Thursday. The executor. Man named Grant Alderman. Through the screen door, I could see Josie back at the table pressing down another yellow note with the flat of her hand. He came through the front door without knocking, and the key was back in his pocket before he cleared the hallway. You're the appraiser. Beck Hale. Grant Alderman. He didn't offer a hand. You're about 2 hours behind where I wanted you. I've been on the property since 9. You've been standing on the porch since 9. There's a difference. He walked past me to the dining table, ran one finger along the edge, and looked at the yellow note stuck to the corner. What's this? Ask your niece. That's cute. He peeled it off, folded it in half, and set it down. Cute doesn't survive a courtroom. Wren came in from the kitchen, fast drying her hands on a dish towel she didn't need. Get out of my house, Grant. It's not that simple, and you know it. I know you walk in here like you pay the water bill. Somebody has to pay something around here. He said it flat, without heat, which somehow made it worse. Where's Josie? Don't. I asked where my brother's daughter is. She's outside, and you don't get to say his name like a receipt. A car door shut into the driveway. The woman who came up the steps was maybe 40 in a blazer over a t-shirt carrying a folder thick enough to have a spine. Marisol Reyes, she said to me. I represent Wren, and you are working for the other side, which is a sentence I'd like you to sit with. I'm trying to get off this contract. Then let me save you the phone call. She dropped the folder on the table. Theo wrote a will when he was 24 years old. Single, no kids, living above a garage. He named his brother executor and never touched the document again. He got married, I said. Doesn't that wipe it? In Ohio, marrying after you sign a will doesn't cancel it. The will stands. So 3 weeks ago, the probate court in this county issued Grant what they call letters of authority. That's the piece of paper that makes him the estate's legal hands. He can inventory, he can sell, he can hire people like you. Grant hadn't moved. He can't touch the house, Marisol said. Theo and Wren held it jointly with right of survivorship, which means the second his heart stopped, it was hers alone. It never entered the estate. Nobody argues that. Then what are we arguing? The shop, and the 4 acres behind it. She tapped the folder twice. Theo's father left him that parcel before the wedding, sole name on the deed, which makes it estate property, and estate property answers to the executor. My stomach did something slow and cold. So the inventory I'm being paid to produce becomes the number he takes to the judge. She almost smiled. Now you're catching up. There's more to it than that, Grant said. There certainly is. Marisol turned on him. Because you're not only the executor, you're the biggest claimant against the estate. You filed a note for $60,000 signed by your dying brother, and then you appointed yourself the man who decides what gets sold to pay it. You're standing on both sides of the table, Grant and I have told this court so in writing. It's a real debt. Then it'll survive being looked at. Wren's hands had started shaking. She pressed them flat against her thighs. Theo would never have signed that. Theo signed a lot of things. Grant's jaw worked. You want me to be the villain here? Fine. I've been the villain since the funeral. You've been the villain since you sent a man to price my kitchen table. I sent a man to do what the law requires. His voice cracked on the last word, and he stopped, and he took a breath through his nose that lasted too long. The inventory is due to the court. 3 months from appointment. That's not me. That's the statute. Then take your 3 months. I don't have 3 months. The hearing on your exceptions is a week from Monday. 9 days. He pointed at the folder without looking at it. If the numbers aren't filed by then, the judge continues it, and we do this again in the fall, and in the fall I'll have less patience and you'll have less money. He picked his keys up off the table. 9 days, Mr. Hale. Full inventory. The shop, the outbuildings, the parcel. At the door, he stopped. And I'd like the key back to this house when you're done, Wren. It was my mother's. Then he was gone, and his truck backed out too fast, and the screen door slapped twice in the frame. Marisol let out a long breath. Well, he's gotten worse. Wren didn't answer her. She was looking at the folded yellow note on the table, and her eyes had gone glassy and full, and she pressed her thumb hard against the bridge of her nose the way people do when they refuse to let it happen in front of company. Beck. 1 syllable. My own name in her voice, no last name attached to it. I had to turn toward the window for a second because a man can be 35 years old and still get taken apart by 2 letters. Yeah, don't quit the contract. Marisol, tell him. Marisol looked between us with the expression of a woman filing something away for later. If he withdraws the estate, hires someone else. Someone who has never met you, who owes you nothing, who walks that shop with a clipboard and a highlighter. She shrugged. Or the number gets written by the only appraiser in the state who's going to be sick about it. 9 days, Wren said. Her voice broke clean in half on the second word. 9 days, and then a judge decides what's left of him. You'd be the fella putting a price on a dead man's chisels. He was 66 or thereabouts in a Buckeyes windbreaker, holding 2 paper cups and grinning like we'd known each other since grade school. Hal Meeks. I did the finish work on half the porches in this township, and Theo did the other half better. Beck Hale. I know who you are. He handed me a coffee I hadn't asked for. Class of '09. You climbed the water tank on a dare and your mother made you scrub it. That was Dale Rutherford. Was it? He sipped unbothered. Well, somebody did. The shop smelled like sawdust and cold iron. Theo had hung his hand tools on a French cleat wall, every one of them traced in pencil, so an empty space told you what was missing. 14 months. Hal said quieter. I still come out here Wednesdays. Sit on that stool. Don't touch nothing. He rubbed his thumb hard along his jaw. You'll want to write down that lathe. He paid $4,000 for it used, and it's worth more now, which is a thing that almost never happens. You knew him well. I knew him 30 years. Hal laughed, then his eyes went wet and he blinked it back fast. Cranky. Slow. Wouldn't rush a joint for the Pope. He'd sand a drawer bottom nobody was ever going to see. Was he in trouble money? Everybody's in trouble money. I mean specifically. Specifically. Hal thought about it, chewing the inside of his cheek. He was tight about the bank for a while there. Real tight. Then that spring he just quit talking about it. Quit worrying it like a loose tooth. I figured a big job came in. Which spring? Oh, hell. He waved a hand. 2 springs back? 3. My wife says I'd lose my head if it wasn't stapled on. Ask Wren. He said it easy the way a man does when he's handed you something and doesn't know it. She was at the sink when I came in and she had the coffee going before I got the door shut. You take it black. I do now. Now. She poured, and her hand went to the sugar bowl on its own, and she put in 2 before she caught herself. Then she stopped with the spoon still in the cup, and her whole shoulder went rigid. God. Wren. 15 years. Her voice came out shredded. 15 years and my hand still knows. It's fine. It is not fine. She pushed the mug across the counter like it had insulted her. Drink it or don't. I drank it. All of it. It was terrible, and I'd have paid money for another one. I need the shop keys, I said. And whatever paperwork Theo kept out there. Receipts, job sheets. There's a drawer. She crossed to the built-in and pulled the second one open, then shoved it shut so hard the dishes rang. Not that one. Wren. I said not that one. She was breathing like she'd run somewhere. 3rd drawer. The keys are in the 3rd drawer. Josie came in from the yard with a chicken under one arm and dirt to her knees. Are you sleeping here? Josie. It's a normal question. Uncle Grant asked it and nobody yelled at him. I'm at the motel out on 22, I said. She considered that. The one with the drained pool. That's the one. Mom, can he eat dinner here? He's 900 miles from his house. Wren's face came apart for about a second and a half before she got it back. Go wash your hands, baby. That's not a no, Josie said to me on her way past, and I found out I could still laugh. A truck pulled up while I was carrying 2 totes out to the shop, and I heard it before I saw it, one of those V8s with a tick in the lifters. It was a work truck white, maybe a 2011, and somebody had taken the door decal off it with a razor and a lot of patience. You could still read the ghost of it in the sun. Alderman built and a phone number underneath. The kid who got out was 16 and built like a fence post. You're the appraiser guy. Beck. Ollie. He shoved his hands in his pockets. Don't tell my dad I'm here. Why would I tell your dad anything? Because he's paying you. He said it without any meanness, which made me feel worse. I come Wednesdays. Josie's got a thing where somebody has to time her on the trampoline. That's a real job. It's the only job I got. He scuffed the gravel. Look, my dad's not... He stopped and started over. People here talk about him like he's some kind of monster, and he's been a jerk to Wren. I'm not saying he hasn't. You don't owe me the family position, Ollie. I know. His voice climbed and cracked, and he wiped his face with the back of his wrist, furious about it. It's just everybody's counting what he's taking. Nobody's counting what he's losing. Losing. The kid went white to the ears. Forget it. Ollie. I said forget it. He was already walking fast toward the sound of Josie shrieking on the trampoline. I gotta go time her. Line 9, Marisol said. Read it out loud. She'd driven out at 7 with my own contract in her folder, which is a thing lawyers do when they want you to feel the paper. Where'd you get this? Public filing. Your firm attached it to the executor's authorization. She tapped it. Line 9, Mr. Hale. I read it. Then I read it again. Slower. The appraiser affirms no personal, familial, or financial relationship with any party in interest to this estate. And you initialed it. There in the box. At a truck stop. At a truck stop. She pulled the chair out and sat down hard. So let's talk about what happens when Grant's attorney finds out the appraiser dated the widow. That was 15 years ago. It was 3 months in the summer after high school, Wren said from the doorway. Her arms were crossed tight over her chest. That's not dating, that's a season. A judge doesn't care about your definitions. Marisol laid both palms flat on the table. Here's the mechanic, and I need you both to actually hear it. An estate appraiser is supposed to be a disinterested third party. That's the entire value of you. The court trusts your number because you have no reason to shade it either direction. I know what disinterested means. Then you know what happens when you're not. She held up one finger. Grant's lawyer moves to strike your appraisal. Not argue with it, strike it. Every page you produce gone like you never set foot on the property. Fine. Then he hires somebody else. That's the good outcome, and you're saying it like it's the bad one. Second finger. The bad one is that he gets to pick the replacement unopposed because he'll walk into that courtroom holding proof that Wren's side put a compromised man inside the house. That's not a fight I win with a paragraph. That's a fight I lose in the hallway. Wren had gone the color of the tablecloth. She put a hand on the back of the chair. So he leaves, tonight. He can't. Marisol's voice softened for the first time all week. He's already been in the shop. He's already touched the tools. If he withdraws on day 4, they'll ask why, and the answer is a deposition. Then what am I doing here? You're finishing the job and you're documenting it like a man who expects to be called a liar. She started stacking the folder. Photograph everything, date stamp everything, keep a log of who was present in every room every hour. If we're going to get accused of contaminating this, the record is all we've got. I laughed once and it came out wrong. So the more I find, the more dangerous I am to her. Now you understand you're weak. She left at 8. The storm came in at 8:21 of those flat green Ohio skies that goes from nothing to everything in 4 minutes, and Wren and I ran the last 40 feet to the shop with a tarp over the totes and got the door shut behind us as it broke open. Rain on a metal roof is the loudest quiet there is. You're soaked, she said. You're worse. I have a house. You have a motel with a drained pool. She wrung out the hem of her shirt, laughing and furious at once. 40 minutes if it's like the last one. We sat on the shop floor with our backs against the cabinet run because the stool was Theo's and neither of us was going to say that. 15 years, she said. What have you been doing? Working. Beck. I walk into houses. I pushed my wet hair back. Somebody dies and the family can't stand to be in the room, so they call a firm and the firm calls me. I put a number on a wedding ring, on a set of golf clubs, on a shoebox of letters that's worth nothing, and I have to write 0 on the line. That's the saddest job I ever heard of. It pays. That's not what I asked. She turned her head against the cabinet to look at me. So you've spent 15 years standing in other people's houses. I didn't have anything for that. The rain went sideways and hammered the west wall, and I felt it in my back teeth. Say the thing, she said. Whatever you've been holding since Tuesday. Say it because I cannot do 9 days of you being careful with me. I don't have a version of it that doesn't sound like an excuse. Try. I was 19 and you scared the life out of me. My voice came apart in the middle of it. Not you. What I'd have had to become. She was closer than she had been. Her hand was flat on the concrete between us, and I could see it shaking, and I watched her breathe in and start to lean, and I was already leaning too. Thunder hit the building like a truck. We both jerked back. She got up fast, both hands over her mouth, laughing in a way that had crying underneath it. No, she said. No, 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 we are not. My husband's chisels are on that wall, Beck. I know. You don't know. She wiped her face hard with both hands. The rain's letting up. I'm going in. I stayed out there 20 more minutes and then crossed the yard and let myself into the kitchen to leave the keys. Old habit put me on the floor. You check the underside of any piece worth over $1,000 because that's where the maker signs it. Theo had signed it. Burned initials back left leg, and 11 inches inward where nothing structural should be. Somebody had cut a stopped dado into the crossbrace and plugged it flush with a grain match so good I'd have missed it in worse light. The job book was under a coffee can of bent finish nails, and it was 3 inches thick, and every page of it was in pencil. He wrote in that thing every single night, Wren said. Kitchen table 9 o'clock whether he'd worked or not. Hold the light steady. I am holding it steady. You're holding it at my ear. Then take it. She shoved the flashlight at me, and I caught her wrist to turn the beam down, and I kept hold of it about 2 seconds longer than the job required, and neither of us mentioned that. Sorry. Don't be sorry, be useful. Her voice had gone rough. What am I looking at? Job book's how a tradesman gets paid. Hours, materials, mileage. If he ever had to sue a customer, this is what he'd bring. I thumbed back through the winter. It's also a diary of where the man physically was every day in his own handwriting. She went very still beside me. March, she said. March. I found it, and my hands started to shake, and I had to set the book flat on the bench. Read it. March 8th, blank. I turned the page. 9th blank, 10th, 11th, 12th. Beck. There's one line across the whole week. I turned the book toward her. Columbus, round 4, back the 20th. She made a sound I'm going to hear for the rest of my life. He was in the hospital. She grabbed my forearm with both hands. Beck, he was 2 hours away in a chemotherapy chair. He could not have been standing in a notary's office in this county on the 12th of March signing a $60,000 promissory note. 16 months ago. 16 months ago. She was laughing and crying at the same time, and she didn't seem to know it. Call Marisol. Call her right now. Wait. Do not tell me to wait. Wren, look at the drawer. Because a man who tracks his hours also tracks his money, and Theo had kept a second folder in the flat file, and it was labeled in the same pencil. Bank. Nothing dramatic, just the word. I laid it open under the light. That's a deposit slip, she said. That's a deposit slip for $60,000. My mouth had gone dry. March 2nd, 10 days before the date on that note. That doesn't mean there's more. The next page was a payoff statement from a bank in Zanesville, and the one behind it was a recorded satisfaction of mortgage stamped by the county recorder, and I've handled enough estates to know exactly what a satisfaction of mortgage is, and exactly what it means when it shows up in a folder. Talk to me. Use words. The shop and the 4 acres had a mortgage on it. I put my finger on the line. $48,000 and change still owed. Theo took the $60,000 on the 2nd of March, walked it to the bank, and paid the whole thing off. This paper is the bank saying so. It's a public record. It's been sitting in the county recorder's office for 16 months where anybody could pull it for $2. She sat down on the shop step like her legs had made the decision without her. No. Wren. No, because that means... Her voice climbed and broke apart. That means the money's real. The money's real. He took $60,000 from his brother, and he never said one word to me about it. She was crying hard now, both hands over her face, shoulders going. Not one word, not when he was sick, not at the end. He looked at me every night for 2 months, and he did not tell me. He was trying to leave it to you clean. Don't you dare defend him to me. I'm not defending him. I crouched down in front of her. I'm telling you what I'd write in the report. The man got a terminal number from a doctor, and then he went and made sure that when he was gone, the only thing his wife owned outright wasn't chained to a bank. That's not a betrayal. That's the ugliest kind of love there is. It's also a debt. She lifted her head, and her eyes were swollen and furious. Say the rest of it. You've already done the arithmetic, I can see it on you. The note's a forgery. He wasn't there on the 12th. That much I'd put my license behind. And the debt underneath it is real, and the paper trail for it is better than ours. I hated every word coming out of me. The shop you're fighting to keep. The 4 acres. The reason there's no bank holding paper on any of it. Wren, it's standing free and clear because Grant Alderman wrote a check. She put her forehead down on her knees and stayed there a long time, and the crickets started up in the field like nothing at all had happened. "So we prove the signature's fake," she said, finally muffled. "And Grant loses the note, and then he just sues the estate for the money on the deposit slip instead." Marisol will say it better than I can. But yes, that's the shape of it. Then what did we just find, Beck? What did we spend 2 hours in a dead man's shop to find? We found out he lied to you. I sat down on the step beside her. And we found out somebody else lied to a judge. Those aren't the same crime, and I'm not going to pretend they are. She wiped her face on her sleeve and laughed, wrecked. You always did talk like a manual. I turned the note over under the light. The notary block was in the bottom corner, a purple inked circle gone soft at the edges from a worn stamp, and there was a commission number and an expiration date and a phone number printed underneath in 6-point type. I dialed it standing in the yard with the moths coming at my face. It rang 11 times. Hello. Sorry to call so late. I'm looking for a notary. Dorothy Prine. The pause on the other end lasted about 4 seconds too long. My mother's retired. When did she retire? She's retired. The woman's voice had gone hard and fast, like a door being put a shoulder to. She doesn't do that anymore. She hasn't done that in a long time, and I don't know how you got this number. Ma'am, it's printed on, don't call this number again. The line went dead against my ear. I stood out there a minute with the phone still up, and then I went back for my jacket on the shop hook, and there was a yellow sticky note pressed flat on the left shoulder of it. The handwriting was enormous and completely certain. Not for sale. She was standing at the built-in when I came back through the door, and she had the second drawer open, and she didn't look up. Sit down. Wren. Beckett, sit down at the table, or I'm going to lose my nerve, and I have been losing my nerve for 11 months. I sat. She took out a business envelope, soft at the corners, the way paper gets when a person handles it too often, and she set it in front of me and put both hands behind her back like a kid who's been told not to touch. Open it. It was a bank notice. Wire credit $60,000 originating account G.R. Alderman, dated the 2nd of March. The room tilted about 4 degrees. You've had this since August. Her voice was flat and terrible. 11 months. I found it cleaning out his side of the closet in a coat pocket folded into eighths. Wren, say it. Whatever you're about to say it fast, because I have said all of it to myself already at 3 in the morning about 400 times. Does Marisol know? No. Does anybody? No. Her chin went and she pressed her lips together hard until it stopped. You've been out in that shop for 2 days looking for something I could have handed you on Tuesday. Why didn't you? Because I did the math. She turned around and gripped the counter edge behind her. If the money's real, the debt's real. If the debt's real, they sell the shop and the 4 acres to satisfy it. That's not a maybe, that's arithmetic. And I did it standing in my closet holding his coat. That's not... I'm not finished. She wiped her face with the heel of her hand, furious about it. You want to know the actual reason it wasn't the land. Then what? Josie stopped asking. I didn't move. For 5 months after he died, every single night she'd get in bed and she'd say, "Where's Daddy?" Not crying, just checking, like she thought maybe I'd forgotten to bring him in. Her breath hitched and came apart. And then one night in July she didn't ask. She asked me to read the one about the badger instead. Wren. And I sat on her floor after she fell asleep and I cried for 2 hours because I was so relieved and so ashamed of being relieved. She was crying openly now, shoulders going, not bothering to hide it. And 3 weeks later I found that envelope, and I thought if I take this to a lawyer, this house becomes a courtroom again. Men in the driveway, boxes, her asking questions I don't have the answers to. So you buried it. So I buried it. She laughed and it came out wrecked. There it is. The widow everybody's been feeling sorry for all year sat on the one piece of paper that mattered. Do you want me to tell you that you're a bad person? I want you to not do the thing you're doing. What thing? The thing where you make it soft. She pointed at me with a shaking hand. Theo used to do that. I'd confess something ugly and he'd sand it down and hand it back to me pretty, and I let him for 9 years and then he died with $60,000 of his brother's money in his mouth. I stood up. You wanted hard, fine. You should have called Marisol in August. Yes. You gave Grant 11 months of a running start, and every one of those months is going to show up in a courtroom as a question about your credibility. Yes. And you're going to have to sit in a chair and say it out loud with him watching. Yes. She was nodding fast, both hands over her mouth. Yes, thank you. God, thank you. That's what you wanted. You have no idea what it's like to be handled. Her voice cracked wide open. Everybody in this town brings me a casserole and asks how I'm holding up, and nobody, not one person in 14 months has told me I did something wrong. You did something wrong. I know. You did it for a good reason. That's the part I can't survive, she said. A board creaked. Josie was 4 steps up the staircase in her pajamas, hair flattened on one side, holding the rail with both hands. Baby, it's 2 in the morning. You're yelling. We weren't yelling, we were talking loud. That's yelling. Josie came down 2 more steps and sat, and she looked at me with that flat courtroom seriousness of hers. Are you making her cry? No, ma'am. She's making herself cry. I'm just here. Josie thought about that. You laugh more this week, she said to her mother. Wren's whole face went to pieces. Bed, now, please. I'm just saying you do. Josephine. The kid went thumping every step on purpose, and when the door shut upstairs, Wren put her back against the refrigerator and slid halfway down it before she caught herself. Get your keys, she said. Wren, get your keys back. She wasn't crying anymore. That was worse. Starting tomorrow, you come when Marisol's here. You do the shop, you do the outbuildings, you write your numbers, and you don't come in this kitchen. Because of a sticky note on my jacket. Because she said you laugh more this week. Her voice went to almost nothing. She didn't say Mom laughs. She said you laugh, and she was looking at both of us when she said it. She's 7. She's 7, and she's already picked you. Wren pushed off the refrigerator. I've got 9 days. Then a judge decides what's left of him, and you get in a truck. And I'm the one who has to sit on that floor and read the one about the badger. There was nothing to say to that wouldn't have been a lie, so I got my keys. I stopped at the end of the driveway because the phone was buzzing on the seat, and I sat under the big silver maple across the road with the engine running and read it twice. Corinne, 11 minutes ago. Dev flies into Columbus 6:40 a.m. He'll be at the property by 9. Hand off everything. Come home, Beck. She pulled the second drawer all the way out of the cabinet and carried it to the table like a tray, and she set it down in front of me at 11 minutes past midnight. Sit. Wren. Sit down, Beck, because I'm only going to get through this once. Under a stack of takeout menus and a dead phone charger. There was a business envelope soft at the corners from handling. Open it. Inside was a canceled check. $60,000 drawn on an account at the Zanesville Bank signed by Grant Alderman. Dated the 28th of February. Theo's endorsement was on the back in ballpoint, and it had gone through the clearing process and come back stamped, which meant the money had moved exactly the way the paper said it had. Behind it was a note card. 6 words in a hard, slanted hand. Don't tell her. We'll fix it. G. My ears started ringing. How long? Say it like a real question. How long have you had this? 11 months. Her chin came up, but her mouth had already started going. I found it in his sock drawer the week I finally made myself clean out the closet. 11 months, Beck. I have known since last August. You told Marisol you'd never heard of the debt. I told Marisol I'd never seen a note. She wiped her face with the heel of her hand, hard, like she was angry at it. And that was true. There's no promissory note in that envelope. There's a check and there's 6 words from a man who isn't Theo. Wren, don't. Her voice cracked wide open. Don't you dare use my name like that, not you. You do not get to be disappointed in me. I'm not disappointed in you. You're something. I'm scared for you. I put both hands flat on the table so she could see them. Because a lawyer needs to know what's in her client's house, and you sat across from that woman for 11 months and let her build a case on sand. I know exactly what I did. Then tell me why. She got up. She went to the sink and turned the water on and turned it off again without using it, and when she turned around, her whole face had come apart. Because in August, she stopped asking. Who did? Josie. She pressed the back of her wrist against her mouth. For 11 months after her father died, every single night that child asked me where he was. Not is he in heaven, where is he? Like he was at the store, like I was hiding him. She was sobbing now, no attempt to run it down. And then one night in August, she just didn't. She asked me if we could get a second chicken, and I stood in that hallway and I cried so hard I had to sit down on the floor because she'd finally stopped and I could not put one more thing in front of her. So you buried it? I put it in a drawer. She laughed and it was awful. I told myself if Grant ever brings it up, I'll deal with it then. And then he brought it up in March with a lawyer and a filing and a number, and by then I'd been lying for 7 months, and how do you walk that back? How do you sit down in front of Marisol Reyes and say, actually, there's an envelope? You say it out loud and you take what comes. That's very easy from where you're standing. It is not easy from where I'm standing. Isn't it? She came back to the table and put her hands on the chair back and gripped it. You get to leave. You've got a rental car and a motel key and a job 900 miles away. I have to stay in this town with these people for the rest of my life. That went in under the ribs and she saw it land, and I watched her hate herself for it. It was fair. It wasn't fair, it was accurate, and those aren't the same. She sat down. She put her forehead in her hands. God, it's midnight and I'm cruel. You're exhausted. I'm both. Neither of us heard the stairs. Josie was standing in the doorway in a nightgown with a chicken pattern on it, hair flat on one side, blinking at the kitchen light. Why are you yelling? Baby, we're not yelling. You were doing the quiet yelling. She rubbed one eye with her fist. That's worse. Come here. Wren pulled her in and got her arms around her. It's late. You've got school in the morning. Josie leaned into her mother and looked at me over her shoulder, entirely awake now with that flat courtroom seriousness of hers. Are you mad at him? No. Because you smiled more this week. The kitchen went very loud with the refrigerator. Wren's arms had gone rigid around her daughter. I watched her face empty out and then rebuild itself, and I knew right then exactly what was about to happen to me. Bed, Josie. But, bed, the kid went. She stopped at the bottom of the stairs and looked back at me one more time, then thumped up them. Wren stayed where she was facing the hallway. Tomorrow you work the shop. Wren, you work the shop and the outbuildings and the parcel, and you do not come in this house while she's awake. Her voice was steady in a way that was worse than crying. You've got a lock on that door and I'll leave the key under the bucket. Look at me. I am looking at you. She turned around and she was, and her eyes were streaming. That's the problem. She's 7 and she's been counting the days since her dad and she has decided you're a person now. And in 5 days you're going to load a rental car. You don't know that. I have watched you do it once already. She wiped her face with both hands and got herself flat and level. I'm not angry. I want you to hear that. I'm doing the one thing I'm still good at, which is figuring out who's going to be sitting on the edge of her bed the night it happens. That's not fair to either of us. Fair got buried 14 months ago. She picked the drawer up off the table and carried it back to the cabinet and slid it home. Take the envelope. Give it to Marisol yourself. I can't watch her read it. I got as far as the porch before my phone lit up in my hand. Corinne at 12:40 in the morning, which she had never once done in 6 years. Grant's counsel filed a challenge to your independence this afternoon, sending Dev tomorrow 9 in the morning. Don't touch anything else tonight. He shook my hand in the driveway at 9 sharp and apologized before he let go of it. I asked Corinne to send somebody else. She said there wasn't anybody else. There isn't. You're the only other one who can read a dovetail. I've been dreading this drive since Wednesday. Dev Okonkwo was 29 and looked about 22, and he had a laptop bag on one shoulder and a genuinely miserable expression. For what it's worth, everybody at the firm thinks the challenge is garbage. It's not garbage, that's the trouble. 3 days, he said. That's what she authorized. You walk me through the property, hand off your notes, and then you're off the file. After Monday, my name goes on the report. Fine. It's not fine, but thank you for not making it worse. He looked past me at the house. Is the widow going to hate me? She's going to feed you. Marisol was already at the kitchen table with the envelope from the drawer open in front of her, and she had the expression of a woman who'd been up since 4. Sit, she said. Both of you. Mr. Okonkwo, you're about to hear things that are none of your business, so I'd like you to look at that lathe. Yes, ma'am. Dev went. Talk to me about the stamp, she said. Bottom of the note. I pushed it across. Purple ink, worn edges. Commission number, expiration date, phone number underneath. And, the commission expired the 16th of January. The note's dated the 12th of March. She sat back very slowly. Explain that to me like I'm a jury. A notary isn't a witness, she's a public officer. The state hands her a commission with a term on it, and when that term runs out, she is a private citizen with a rubber stamp. I tapped the block. Anything she certifies after that date is worth exactly nothing, not fraudulent on its own, void. So the note dies. The note as a document dies. The debt doesn't. I looked at her until she nodded. Marisol, there's a second piece. Ohio makes notaries keep a journal. Every notarial act goes in it. Date what kind of document, who appeared, how they proved who they were. Her whole face changed. There's a book. There's supposed to be a book. The Prine house was on the south end of town with a wheelchair ramp built over the front steps and a 1990s sedan in the drive. The woman who opened the door was in her 40s in hospital scrubs, and she recognized my voice before I finished my name. You're the one who called. Miss Prine, it's Lena and you need to leave. I'm not here about the note. You're absolutely here about the note. Her hand was white on the doorframe. Do you think you're the first a lawyer called in April? Then a man from the county. My mother is 71 years old. Lena, honey, who is it? Dot Prine came into the hallway behind her daughter in a cardigan buttoned wrong, small and pleasant, with a smile that went out to me like a hand. Oh, it's a client. Her face lit right up. Do you need something notarized? I keep the stamp in the kitchen. Lena, get my glasses. The man needs a mom. It's no trouble at all. I've got the book right there. Mom, go sit down, please. Lena's voice was made of glass. Watch your show. I'll be 2 minutes. Dot patted her daughter's arm on the way past and told me it was lovely weather. Lena came out onto the ramp and pulled the door shut behind her, and she was crying before it clicked. Now you know. How long? She was fine at Christmas. That's what I tell people. She was fine at Christmas. She scrubbed her face with both hands. She was not fine at Christmas. She was fine in a way that let me keep going to work. Her commission lapsed in January. She didn't renew because she forgot, and she kept the stamp out because it was on the counter, and people in this town have been walking up to that door with paperwork for 30 years. Her voice went to pieces. She thought she was being helpful. Do you understand? She thought she was helping people. The journal. No. Lena, there's a woman 4 miles from here about to lose a shop her husband died owning. And there's a woman right there behind that door who spent her whole life doing everything correctly. She jabbed a finger at the house. You want me to hand you a book that proves she performed public acts for 2 months after she had no right to, and while she couldn't reliably say what day it was? Do you know what that does to her? Not legally, to her? I know what it does. Then don't ask me for it. I stood on that ramp with my chest full of gravel, and I couldn't put one honest sentence together. I'm sorry, I said. Everybody is. She went inside and shut the door. They were at the kitchen table when I got back, and Wren was laughing. Not politely, actually laughing head back with a dish towel over her shoulder while Dev told her something about a client in Cincinnati who'd hidden cash in a piano. She looked 22 for about 4 seconds. Something went through me so ugly and so fast that I had to put my hand on the counter. He was 29 and decent, and he'd apologized to me in a driveway, and I stood in that doorway resenting him for making her laugh, and I have never in my life liked myself less than I did in that 10 seconds. There he is, Dev said. Beck, tell her about the piano. You tell it better. I went to the refrigerator for water I didn't want, and that's when I actually looked at the photograph. They'd been married under a tree with maybe 30 people in folding chairs. Theo had his hand at the small of her back, and his tie was crooked, and he was looking at the camera like a man who'd gotten away with something enormous. I'd been standing in front of that picture for 6 days without once giving it the courtesy of my attention. The man built her a table with a secret in it and paid off her land while he was dying and never once made it her problem. I put a number on other people's furniture for a living. We were not the same kind of man, and I'd have said so under oath. The school bus hissed at the end of the drive at 3:15. Josie came up the gravel at a dead-run, backpack slapping, and stopped in front of me with her chin up. Okay, so? She was out of breath. When are you opening the table? I knocked on the cross brace with one knuckle and the sound came back wrong. Do that again. Josie, back up a foot. Do it again. I did it again, moving along the brace, and the note stayed dead and dull for 11 inches and then went hollow and my whole scalp went cold. Wren came in from the hallway drying a plate. What are you two doing under my table? Come down here. Beck. Wren, get down here and listen to this. She got down on the floor in her socks with the dish towel still in her hand, and I tapped the solid stretch, then the hollow one, then the solid again. That's a void. That's a what? He cut a stop dado into the brace. A channel that doesn't run out either end so you can't see it from any angle. I ran my thumb along the seam. Then he made a plug and matched the grain across the joint and glued it in flush. Look at the line. You have to know it's there to find it. How long would that take a person to do it that well? My voice wasn't steady. A day, maybe 2. He was doing that, she said. He was down here on this floor doing that while I was... She stopped and pressed the towel against her mouth. I need a chisel and a mallet. Take whatever you want off the wall. Wren, if I open this, I can't close it. The plug's a one-way trip. Beckett. She had tears standing in her eyes, and she was smiling in a way that broke something in my chest. My daughter has been telling me about this table for a year and a half, and I told her it was a bedtime story. It took 11 minutes. I went in at the seam with a 1/4-inch chisel bevel down, tapping so light it barely sounded because I did not want to be the man who split that brace. The plug came out in one piece. Josie was lying flat on the floor with her chin on her hands. Is there money? There's paper, I said. I got 2 fingers in and drew out a bundle wrapped in a scrap of muslin tied with string, and I set it on the floorboards between us, and my hands were shaking so hard I had to put them on my knees. Wren untied it. Envelopes. 12 of them. 11 in a stack with numbers on the front in carpenter's pencil, that flat wide lead he'd have had in his apron. 8, 9, 10, straight up to 18 in order the way a man counts out something he already knows he will not be there for. And under those 1 more with no number on it at all. Wren, when you're ready. She made a sound like she'd been hit and folded forward over her own knees. Mom, I'm okay, baby. You're not doing okay. I know. She was sobbing openly now, one hand out for her daughter and one hand flat on the floor holding her up. Come here to me. Josie crawled into her mother's lap, which she was much too tall for, and sat there anyway with her head under Wren's chin. There for me. There for you. Every birthday. Wren pressed her face into her daughter's hair. He wrote you every birthday until you're 18. Can we read 8? I'm 7, but I'm almost. You're not almost, you're in April. That's almost. Wren laughed, and it turned into crying halfway through, and she got the flap open and got about 4 words in before her voice quit entirely. I can't. Baby, I can't do it. My throat's... Then he can. Josie pointed at me without looking up. Mom does the crying thing, and then she stops in the middle, and I have to wait. Josie. It's true. Wren held the letter out to me over her daughter's head, and her hand was shaking, and I took it. Okay, I said. I had to clear my throat twice. Josie girl, if you're reading this, you are 8 years old, which means you are officially too big to ride on my shoulders in the house, and I want it on the record that I said that first. Josie laughed out loud, one bright bark of it, and grabbed her own ears. I'm going to tell you a thing about being 8. 8 is when you start noticing that grown-ups are guessing. We are. All of us all the time. Your mother guesses better than anybody I ever met. When you don't know what to do, go stand next to her. I stopped and took a breath through my nose and kept going. I built you a table. It's the best thing I ever made, and it's holding this letter, so I guess I built you a mailbox. Happy birthday. Don't let anybody tell you the story's over. Love, Dad. Josie put her hand flat on the floorboard. That's the whole thing. That's the whole thing. Okay? She wiped her nose on her wrist, entirely composed. I want 10 next. Absolutely not until you're 10, Wren said. Bed. Go. I'll be up. The kid went, and she took the 8th envelope with her, clamped in both hands like a bird. Wren stayed on the floor. She reached back and pulled the last envelope out of the stack. Don't watch me. I'm not going anywhere. That's the opposite of what I asked. I know. She opened it. She read the whole thing without a sound, and then she leaned sideways and put her forehead down on my shoulder, and stayed there breathing wet and ragged, and I did not move one muscle in my body. Then she put the page in my hand. Read the last part. I don't know how to say this without making it your job, so I'll just say it. I took money from Grant in March. It's real, and I couldn't tell you because you'd have made me send it back. He wants to be the man who saved something. Let him have it. If Grant asks, say yes. I told him you would. The refrigerator kicked on in the kitchen. He told his brother I'd honor it, she said. Wren. So we can win. Her voice came out flat and shredded at once. You've got a dead commission and a bad date and a journal we can subpoena, and Marisol can put that man on a stand and take him apart. And every bit of it goes directly against the last written instruction my husband ever gave me. That letter isn't a legal document. It's not a codicil, it's not witnessed. It doesn't bind you to anything. I didn't ask you what it binds. She got up off the floor. She put her hand on the table on the good clean top of it, and she stood there with her jaw working. Call Grant, she said. Tell him to be at the shop tomorrow at 10. Tell him to bring Nadia. Wren, that's not... And tell him I'm not fighting the 60,000. They came at 5 of 10, and Grant got out of the truck alone and stood beside it with his hands on his hips, looking at the shop door like a man reading a diagnosis. Nadia stayed in the passenger seat a full minute before she opened her door. Before anybody says anything, Marisol said, I want it on record that I advised my client against this meeting in writing at 7 o'clock this morning. Noted, Wren said. Twice, actually. Noted twice. Grant came in. He looked at the tools on the wall and something moved across his face and he put it away. You said you're not fighting the note. I said I'm not fighting the money. Wren stood at the end of the bench with the letter folded in front of her. There's a difference and you're going to sit through it. I'll stand. Then stand. Marisol laid 3 documents out in a row, squaring the edges. Mr. Alderman, the note you filed is void on its face. The notary's commission expired the 16th of January. She had no authority on the 12th of March. That's not an argument that's a date against a date. That's a technicality. It's the second thing that isn't. She slid the job book forward and opened it. Your brother was in an infusion chair in Columbus from the 8th to the 20th of March. His handwriting, his book, and Ohio State's billing office will confirm every hour of it. So I'd like you to tell me out loud in front of your wife who signed that document. Grant put both hands on the bench. I did. Nadia made a small noise and turned her face away. Say the rest, Wren said. The original burned. His voice came out like it had been dragged over gravel. He signed a real one in February when I gave him the check. He burned it in the fire pit in April when he knew so it wouldn't come after you. He pressed the heels of his hands into his eyes. He told me on the phone. He said I took care of it, like he'd done me a favor. So you made another one? I made another one. His shoulders started going and he fought it and lost. I sat at my kitchen table and I copied my dead brother's signature off a Christmas card and I drove it over to Dot Prine's because she's known me since I was 6 and she doesn't ask questions and I have not slept right one night since. Grant. Nadia had her hand over her mouth. You knew he'd do this, he said to her. You told me in the driveway. I told you it would eat you. Well, it's eating me. That's when Marisol said very quietly, Miss Prine is here. Lena was standing in the doorway with a ledger book under her arm in scrubs like she'd come straight off a shift. I'm not giving it to a court, she said. I'm giving it to this room and then I'm taking it home. She set it on the bench and opened it to a page held with a rubber band. March 12th. My mother's handwriting. One entry all day. It says Deed of Easement Meeks. Her chin was trembling. There's no note. There's no alderman. She stamped a document she never wrote down because by March she was writing down about half of what she did, and I have been sick about that book since April. Why now? Wren asked. Because Ollie Alderman mows my mother's lawn every other Saturday and won't take money for it. Lena's face came apart. And I found out yesterday that boy's changing schools in August. So I'd rather hand this to you people in a shed than watch it get read out loud in a courthouse with my mother's name in the transcript. Nadia stood up. Tell them, she said. Nadia. You will not make me do it, Grant. I have watched you not do it for 16 months. She turned to Wren, and her voice went to pieces. Alderman built folded last May, not slowed down, folded. He had 4 crews and a bonding line, and a general contractor in Newark went under, owing him $91,000, and it took the whole thing down with it. Nadia, stop. The $60,000 he gave your husband was a home equity loan on our house. She was crying so hard she had to grip the bench. We are 4 payments behind. There's a letter on my counter right now. Our son is changing schools in August because we're renting a place in Coshington, and I have not been able to say that sentence out loud to one single person in this town. The shop was so full of the sound of her breathing that nobody tried to talk over it. Wren sat down slowly on Theo's stool. You took a loan against your house, she said, to give to him. He was dying. Grant said it like it was obvious. He called me in February and told me the shop had a mortgage on it and he couldn't make it clean before he went. What was I supposed to say? You could have said it to me, any day, for 16 months. And what would you have done? Sold something. She was on her feet. Grant, I would have sold the parcel and handed you a check, and we would both have been standing here like human beings instead of whatever this is. I didn't want your land, I wanted... He stopped. Say it. I wanted to be the one who fixed something. He was fully crying now, this big square man with sawdust on his boots. He was the one who built things. I was the one with the trucks and the crews and the sign, and I outlived him, and I wanted one thing of his to still be standing that I put my hands on. I'd been quiet against the doorframe for 20 minutes because it wasn't my family and it wasn't my grief. But there was a filing sitting in a courthouse with my name in it, and every honest thing in that shop was about to get spent arguing over whether I was clean. Marisol. Beck don't. Everybody in this room needs to hear it from me instead of from a lawyer on Monday. I stepped in off the wall. I dated Ren Alderman the summer we were 19 years old. I initialed a disclosure that said I didn't know anybody here. That's on me, and I'll say it to the court, and my firm can do what it wants about it. Deb straightened up off the workbench. Beck, you're the appraiser of record as of right now. Your number, your signature, your license. I set my keys down on the bench. I don't work for anyone in this room anymore. Ren's hand came up over her mouth. Grant looked at me for a long moment, and then he picked up the job book and closed it, and he turned to his sister-in-law with his face completely undefended. Then I'm asking you the way he said I would, he said. Ren, say yes. She let the question sit long enough that Grant started to shake. Yes, Ren said, with conditions, and you'll hear all of them before you thank me. Name them. You withdraw that note today in writing, and you tell the court exactly why. I'm not paying a forgery. I'm paying my husband's debt, and the paper is going to say so honestly because Josie will read that file when she's 20, and I refuse to hand her a lie with a stamp on it. That's my license. That's a referral to the prosecutor. That's the price, Marisol said. A voluntary withdrawal with full disclosure reads very differently to a judge than getting caught. I'd rather be your lawyer Monday than Tuesday. What else? You resign as executor. The court appoints somebody neutral, and that person sells the 4 acres at public auction with the number printed in the paper where this whole township can see it. She put her hand flat on the bench. You get $60,000. The remainder goes to Josie's account, and you and I are square in front of God and the county both. The parcel's worth more than $60. I know what it's worth. Beck priced it Thursday. She looked at me for half a second. And the shop comes out of the sale, the building and the acre under it. That one isn't negotiable, and I'll spend money I don't have fighting you. Grant looked at the wall of tools with their outlines drawn behind them in pencil. Keep the shop. His voice broke all the way through. God, Ren, keep the shop. One more thing. You don't get forgiven this fast. Ren, you'll come to her birthday. You'll send the cards. You'll be her uncle. Her eyes spilled over, and she let them. But you took 16 months of my life and spent it making me feel like a woman who couldn't hold on to her own house. I won't pretend on Sunday that it didn't happen. You get the truth and the money and your name back. You don't get me warm yet. Grant nodded about 6 times and couldn't produce a word. Nadia crossed the shop and put her arms around her, and Ren stood stiff for a moment, and then gave out entirely and hung on to her in front of everybody. Dev filed the appraisal Monday under his own signature. The challenge to my independence died because there was nothing left standing to challenge, and Corinne called that afternoon to tell me Phoenix had gone to somebody who reads what he initials. You're not arguing, she said. I'm sitting on a porch in Ohio. I've got no argument left in me. Ren came out with 2 cups after Josie went up, and the frogs started in the ditch line like they'd been waiting for a cue. Say the thing you've been chewing on all day. 8 years ago I drove out here. Her cup stopped moving. I was coming back from a job in Indiana. I got off at Zanesville, drove 60 miles out of my way, and parked under that big maple across the road. My throat closed, and I made myself keep going. You were pregnant. Theo was screwing a light fixture into the ceiling, and you were telling him it was crooked, and you were laughing at him. I thought that woman is not missing one single thing. Then I put it in gear and drove home and never told a living soul. She set her cup down on the step. Green truck, she said. The whole night went thin. Ren, a green truck under the maple. You sat there 40 minutes. I watched the clock on the stove. She was crying and laughing at once, both hands against her mouth. I told Theo I was going in for a sweater, and I stood at that window until you left. I have known your headlights since I was 17. Why didn't you come out? Because I was happy. That's the terrible part. She turned on the step to face me, wrecked and wide open. I was happy and I was married and I loved him completely, and I still stood at that window for 40 minutes. Then he came in and put his hand on my back and asked if I found my sweater, and I said yes, and I never told him. He'd have forgiven you. In about 4 seconds. And that's worse. She wiped her face with the flat of her hand. I'm not comparing you two. I'm not weighing anybody. I'm asking permission to go on living. You don't need it from me. I wasn't asking you. So I put my hand along her jaw, and she came the rest of the way, and I kissed her on that porch with the frogs going and the whole ruined week behind us. 8 months later, there were tools running in that shop again on Saturdays because Hal Meeks and I had started taking small work and splitting whatever came of it. My name went on a plate under Theo's, which Hal insisted on, and I lost the argument about. Josie put the 8th letter back in the table in November. She said reading it early didn't count, and she wanted to do it right, so we glued the plug home and I cut a small brass hinge into it instead. Every April she goes in after one. Grant sends cards. He came in June and stood in the yard with a wrapped box, and Wren brought him a plate. It isn't warm. It's honest. There's time. Josie found me under the truck one Sunday and lay down on the gravel beside me. Are you staying? Wren was 10 feet off with a laundry basket on her hip and didn't pretend to be busy. I'm staying. Forever staying, or you have a job somewhere staying. Forever staying. Okay, she brushed off her elbows. Then I'm putting you in the catalog. I've spent my whole working life pricing what people leave behind, and the number is almost never the point. There's a line on my form for market value. There's no line for what a man was trying to say when he paid something off quietly or hid letters where only a curious kid would think to knock. Here's what I had wrong for 15 years. I thought the cowardly sentence was the cheap one. It isn't. It only moves the bill, and somebody you love pays it later with interest. Nobody in this story was brave in a large way. They were brave in a kitchen at midnight in a work shed with their hands shaking. That's the only kind there is, and it gets offered to all of us about once a week. If this one reached you tonight, tell me in the comments about the sentence you've been carrying around. And stay with us. There's always another one waiting.